Hello and welcome to another Enchantment of Eternity Patreon-only video where I'm here to continue my Patreon series about Star Trek The Animated Series, covering all of the animated series, 2 episodes at a time. In this video, I'm covering episodes 15 and 16. These are the final 2 episodes of Season 1. So I'm getting very close to the end because there's only 6 episodes in Season 2. And I'm wrapping up Season 1 now. So let me start with episode 15, The Eye of the Beholder. And to be honest, like this, I didn't remember this episode at all. Like I was watching it like maybe 10-15 minutes through and it's like, have I seen this before? Like, because I have seen the animated series before, twice, I think. And this did not seem familiar to me at all until they got to the big reveal that it was a zoo episode. Now, this has become quite common and quite tropey. I forgot all about the fact that the animated series had a zoo episode until they mentioned it. I was like, oh yeah. Because I was actually surprised to hear, once I think about it, that Star Trek proper never really had a zoo episode, unless you count the menagerie. I mean, or the cage. That's the closest thing. But I never honestly saw that as a straight up zoo episode because they weren't really a zoo. They were more of like their species was dying out and they were looking for someone to replace them. I think of zoo episodes, and there's a lot of, this is most common in cartoons. A lot of cartoons have done this. Like off the top of my head, I'm thinking of Buzz Lightyear, but that was in the late 90s. I'm sure there was a lot in the 80s and the 70s that are just too long ago, I can't remember, which is more like aliens kidnaps a group of humans, put them on a cage and on display for people to come look at and their children to laugh at, like literally a zoo. The Orville, of course, did this very recently, and of course they did because it's one of the most unoriginal shows ever made, so of course they're just going to use the same trope that's been overused a billion times before. I give the animated series a bit more slack than the Orville because, first of all, this came out in the 70s, way before the trope has become nearly as tired as it is now. And secondly, it is an animated show. So it is a cartoon, and these are more common for cartoons, and I give cartoons a bit more leeway in their cliches and their logic because they're geared towards kids. But anyway, yeah, I'd completely forgotten about this episode. Watching it again, it's fine. Like, there's nothing about this that angers me or bores me or thinks, oh my god, this sucks. It's adequately interesting. I mean, it's not particularly good because it's very cliche and it doesn't really offer anything new. But here's my nitpick, and I'm getting into nitpicks. I know some people might think I'm a bit crazy for nitpicking a kid's cartoon, but that's what I'm here for. Anyway, my nitpick about this is they beamed down to the planet and they said, oh, we have to cross this desert, and they have to cross this desert for a really long time, and they're trying to get to the place where the people are that they're searching for, the missing Starfleet officers they're searching for. They're like, oh, they're northwest of here. Oh god, we have to travel so long. Why the hell don't they just beam there? I don't recall any line of dialogue stating that they couldn't be there. Now, it is actually used in Star Trek several times, if not a lot, where they are trying to get to a place, but they can't beam there, so they have to walk. But they always, in those eventualities, they always state that they can't beam there and make up some BS excuse like, oh, the scattering beams, or there's a storm, or there's a deflector shields, or some bullshit term, which really they just do for plot convenience so that the characters have to travel and get there on foot rather than beaming right there. But this episode kind of forgot to do that and forgot to come up with an excuse of why they couldn't just beam right there. So the whole time they're like, oh my god, we have to travel across this huge desert. I'm just thinking, why? You got transporters, you morons. But anyway, and I'm getting sick to death of the same, and this will be in the next episode as well. They use the same design and the same sound design, the same, animated visual design and the same sound design for these dragging-like creatures that often come from above and attack them. And the animated design is okay, but the sound design is awful. It's just such a generic, cheap, and it's so annoying. And they usually play it on a loop while these things are attacking. This has happened like so many times throughout the show, and as I said, like the very next episode we use the exact same thing, and it's so annoying. I really don't like it. And yeah, the first half of this episode is basically a bunch of random animals attacking them for no reason. Now here's what I don't understand. Like they said, oh, these animals are from planets they're familiar with, and that's kind of like a hint. And the terrain changes drastically. It goes from desert to forest to jungle, and they think that's weird. So the answer is that it's a zoo. But when they put Kirk and them in a zoo, it's a flat out like zoo. Like it's a structure inside a city where there's exhibits and windows. So why do they have outside the city where no one is? Why do they have these zoo animals just roaming free? That doesn't really make sense to me. But whatever. I'm looking for logic in the kids show. Silly me. But anyway, Spock would say it's illogical, and I don't know. Spock has some really annoying lines in this episode. I don't know. But anyway, so there's these weird elephant looking, well, not really elephant looking, they have these huge trunks, these really purple blob creatures that apparently, I don't know, they're like, they're telepathic, they're like super intelligent, they're able to kidnap these people from all across the galaxy, but then Spock ends by saying that they're kind of primitive and at the same state that they were hundreds of years ago, and I'm like, huh? What? I'm a bit confused about that. And and they have these like super telepathic abilities, and they can read people's minds. But when Spock tries to communicate with them, they just laugh at him, which I think is. I don't know. I have mixed feelings about this episode. I thought it was vaguely interesting. I do like how the Starfleet officers they encounter. Like, two of them are women, and the guys that it was the lieutenant, but they have this science officer and whatnot. One of them six. Like, I like how the animated series plays this up a bit more, and of course they're all voiced by Marjorie Barrett. But anyway, so yeah, this episode was okay. Yeah, I don't really have much else to say about it. It's a zoo episode, so it's very cliche, and again, there's a lot of logical issues. But it was somewhat interesting. So my rating for The Eye of the Beholder out of 10 is a 5 average. Yeah, it's fine. It's fine, whatever. Okay, so let's get into the season 1 finale, the Jihad. Now, this, of course, has a bit more different meaning in modern times. Jihad is a lot more well-known phrase, which is usually associated with terrorists, Middle Eastern terrorists attacking the Western world. But that's more of a modern thing. But anyway, this is a very typical fantasy-like episode. And I want to say it's probably, this episode is more like a 70s cartoon than it is a Star Trek show. Now, of course, Star Trek the Animated Series is an animated cartoon, a 70s cartoon Star Trek show. It's all three. And I think most of the episodes I reviewed were that. They were Star Trek, they were a cartoon, and they were 70s. This one, not so much of the Star Trek. It's more of a 70s cartoon. And it reminds me of stuff like Johnny Quest, which I guess that was 80s, but, same difference, whatever. But maybe I was 70. I don't know. I never really watched that. I mean, a little bit. I know enough that this reminds me of it. What this episode basically is Dungeons and Dragons, a Dungeons and Dragons session. And two of the players decided to I don't want to play these typical characters. I want to be Kirk and Spock from Star Trek. So basically, it's Kirk, Spock, and you got they have these aliens, but they're like your typical cartoon creatures that you would find in the adventure. So there's the Birdman, who reminds me so much of Harvey Birdman. He's just typical, I am a Birdman, blah, 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 blah. And you got this little green thing, which I do give George Takei credit for his voice acting here. I think he did a much better job than James Doohan usually does. With this sneaky little green thing, and it's I'm what you would call a coward. I don't know about the dialogue, but again, it's a kids show from the 70s, so what do you want? But and then it's oh yeah, there was this chick who I guess was some sort of barbarian. They never really explained this, or some sort of a huntress, and she kept hitting on Kirk the whole time. And this is the most unbelievable aspect of this episode, is that Kirk turned her down repeatedly. No, that's one thing I cannot buy. You might say maybe Kirk, you could say he's really hollow because maybe this chick isn't very hot, because she's more of your rough barbarian type. Maybe that's not his thing, but Kirk would go for anything. I don't buy that he would turn anyone down. And basically, even though this is a kid's show, so they didn't say it outright, but basically she was just offering to fuck him. She wasn't offering for a long-term relationship. She's just if we're together, this is going to be a much more memorable experience. She's talking about sex. Come on. I guess that would just go over the head of most kids watching this. Now it's more of a thing for the adults. And Kirk said, "No, that's okay. I'm good." Bullshit. He wouldn't say that. But anyway, and there was this other lizard-looking dude. I was thinking maybe it was a Gorn, but I don't think it was a Gorn. I think it was just another generic lizard-looking guy who I don't know, didn't really do much. It was and there was there was this cat creature that sort of was Kirk introduced him as Captain's Log as one of the oldest creatures and known creatures in the galaxy or whatever, and it came off as very sort of not Star Trek. It came off more fantasy. This whole episode came off as more of a adventure fantasy thing than a Star Trek episode. And so the cat creature was so funny. Not laughing with the show, but laughing at it, bad, so bad is good sort of thing, where the cat would just be, oh, this is your mission, and blah, blah, explaining all this lore, and would just out of random go, meow. It was just oh no, stop it, stop. But yeah, and so they had all this lore that they just dumped on you so fast. I actually went back and watched this 3 times, and I still don't fully get what they're getting at. I think this is they're trying to dump way too much lore in this tiny little thing, and I felt no connection to it. And so basically, yeah, so that cat alien creature gathered up random people from across the galaxy, and Kirk and Spock, because Spock's smart and Kirk's a good leader, which is because of the 2 main characters of the show, and this is the show we're in. That's the real reason. Anyway, and so they gather them up for a D&D type adventure to go on a quest to find this weird thing, and yes, they get attacked by those same fucking dragon-like creatures that we see in every episode going which is so annoying. And then they find out that Birdman had betrayed them. Or Bird Person. That's who it reminds me more of. Bird Person more than Harvard Birdman. But anyway, from Rick and Morty, if you're not familiar. But anyway, so Bird Person betrays them, and who cares? Like, I don't care. Like, because they had this lore that this thing, the magical thing that could destroy the universe. I don't even know what the fuck it does. I watched this episode 3 times and I still don't get it. It could destroy the universe or whatnot. Has something to do with the bird people. Because we were once warriors, but now we're civilized. And then at the end of the episode, I want to go back to being a warrior. I don't care. Like, they just throw a bunch of lore at you and expect you to care oh no, he actually turns out to be the betrayer. And all these characters are completely underdeveloped. Like the slimy green coward dude is just your typical, I'm a slimy green dude. And the lizard guy is, I'm just a rough guy. And the chick is just, wanting to fuck Kirk the whole time. That's basically her deal. Or she's a good fighter too. She could, kill stuff. But anyway. And the bird person is just like, I'm Bird Person. I am here for Exposition Man. And at the end, I will betray them. Who cares? Don't care. I really did not care about this episode. I don't think it was horrible. I will think this is probably the most, if you consider the animated series canon, which is questionable, but CBS wants you to because they want you to watch it. But if you consider the animated series canon, this is the one show episode in all of Star Trek canon which is the least Star Trek. Like, forget Discovery, Picard, anything. Like, this is the least Star Trek. This is D&D. This is not Star Trek. And so I don't consider this canon. Like, all these animals, or aliens, in this episode, these are cartoon characters. These are from Johnny Quest or whatever. These are not Star Trek aliens. But that's just me. Anyway, my rating for the Jihad out of 10 is a 4 poor. Not the worst episode in the world, but I really didn't care. They just dumped a bunch of exposition and just rushed through a D&D like adventure without giving you enough to care about any of the characters or care about any of the stakes. Anyway, that is it for my review of the latest 2 episodes of the animated series. I shall be back next month to start on season 2, the very short 6 episode. Only take me 3 months, and then I'll be done. But anyway, thank you so much for supporting the channel. Really does mean a lot to me. My keyboard broke this morning, and I fell behind on my videos, and I was able to go out and buy another one because of the help that you guys give me. So it is very much appreciated. So thank you so much for the support, and we'll see you next month with the next animated series review. Take care.